What's up, people? My name is Jeffrey Kaminsky, and today I'm going to be talking about some very simple things that if you are not doing, by doing them, you will become stronger immediately. And there are a lot of complex things you see on the internet, lifting related. I mean, there's so much information out there nowadays, but it's easy to get bogged down in the tiny details. But these are simple things that people of all levels, from high school or college and beyond, somehow aren't doing. Whether you're an athlete or a recreational lifter, you can benefit from learning these simple things. Let's get into the first one. The first and most important concept that we talk about today is breathing and bracing, because this will make it so you can lift heavier weights, but also be safer while lifting those heavier weights. Because I'm sure we all know that one person who is afraid to do heavy compound lifts like deadlifts or squats because it hurts their back. Unless they have something medically wrong with them, it hurts their back because they probably don't understand how to properly breathe into and brace their core. Right now, as it is, there is room for my spine to move inside of my body, which is good for a lot of things, but when I'm trying to lift something heavy, I don't need it bending. That's how we get hurt. I need it to stay as solid as possible. But there's all this space right here, and the way that we get rid of that space is by breathing, not just into our chest, but into our stomach as well. You should be trying to look like Santa Claus pretty much by expanding your midsection with as much air as physically possible. Do this by breathing into your nose. When you run out of space, sip a little more air with your mouth. Now, this is expanded and there's less room for our spine to move around, but it's still not good enough. You need to be bracing your ab muscles onto that air to create enough pressure to keep your spine right where it is. So a lot of people, when you hear about flexing your abs during a lift, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm going to be doing a crunch with 300 pounds on my back? Absolutely not. That means you're going to be bracing your abs, your obliques, and your lower back on that air in a 360-degree direction, trying to expand all of this and make it as stable as possible. You'll know you're doing it right if you feel like your head's going to explode because of how much pressure is built up. And that's okay. It is a weird feeling at first, but you will get used to it, especially as it makes your weights move and feel better. You won't ever want to stop doing it ever again. How we actually apply it is to understand that there's lifting time and breathing time, and the two do not go together. Anytime the bar is actively moving, I should not be breathing in or out. I should already have my air in my midsection and have it properly braced. Ideally, you should be breathing and bracing when you're in a position where you're unloaded. So that means before I actually pick up the bar in a deadlift, I might be down in my setup, getting my brace, and then pulling it up. But obviously on something like a squat or a bench, I have the bar on my back the whole time. That means you should be trying to get your breathing and bracing when you're in a position where your spine and your bone structure is supporting the bar and not just the musculature of your core. So after I'm walk the bar out right here, I should rebreathe and brace before going down into it. Same thing on a bench. After I unrack the bar, rebreathe and brace right here and then go. Obviously it's not going to be as important on something like a bench press as it will be on a squat, where my core collapsing would be a point of failure, but doing this is still going to allow you to produce more force and actually put it into the bar no matter what lift you're doing. And you should be viewing breathing and bracing as kind of like a bolt action rifle, as in that I'm going to shoot around, and I'm going to chamber another one, shoot around, and chamber another one. I might only be able to get 1, 2, or 3 reps on one breath, and then I should try to get another breath in and re-brace. And that should be either when you're unloaded or when you're at a point where you have bone structure supporting you. Our second key concept is the fact that it's always easier to move something the closer it is to your body. I mean, if I try to pick somebody up and they're all the way out here, it's not going to happen no matter how strong I am. I have to pull them in over my body's base of support and I can lift them all day. Lifting wise, this means that you should always try to keep the bar over the middle of your foot. That's going to make sure that you're balanced and that the bar will have a straight bar path up where it is most efficient. You're not going to waste energy. And yeah, this might sound kind of self-explanatory, but even that being said, you'd be surprised how many people let the bar just drift all over the place and wonder why they lose their balance or end up hurting their back or not lifting as much weight when the bar is not moving over their body's base of support. Now we're going to touch a little bit on programming, because programming is what separates working out from training. One of these things is just going in the gym and doing whatever you feel like, whereas the other one is having a goal and setting out a plan on how to actually achieve that goal. So you start off with that goal, whatever that might be. Maybe it's increasing a specific lift, getting faster, getting bigger muscles, or preparing for a specific contest. And you need to figure out how long it'll take you to get to that goal realistically. I mean, I could say I want to deadlift 600 pounds, but if I'm at 300 pounds, that's not going to happen within a 12-week time frame. But I might be able to add 20 to 50 pounds during that time. That's realistic. And now that you know how long it's going to take you to get there, you can understand where you should be at each stage along the process. All right, so that was kind of more of the big picture of programming. Now we're going to rein it in and look at a week-long basis of programming. And this is where you're going to hear people talk about splits, which is basically just how you divide up certain exercises and muscle groups into different days of the week so you don't overtrain things and do them twice in a row. You might hear about upper lower, push-pull legs, full body, etc. But no matter what kind of split you're doing, there are a couple key principles that you should be doing no matter what. The first of which is going to be compliance. You have to find something that you're actually going to do. I could find the perfect program, but if it is 2-a-days every single day of the week, and I barely have an hour twice a week to go to the gym, I'm not going to follow that, and I'm not going to get anywhere. The second thing is to pick something that's at your level. If I'm a beginner lifter, I should follow more of a beginner style program instead of just seeing something that an Olympian who has been training for 20 years is doing and try to copy that, because I'm not going to be able to handle that level of stress. The second thing is the thing about frequency, which is how often you're doing each particular thing during a week. Most people will often try to do once a week or once every other week and wonder why their progress is pretty slow. Whereas the more you do something, the better you're going to get at it, up to a certain extent, of course. But if you bump it up from once a week to 2 or 3 times a week, you're probably going to see a lot faster gains in that. Obviously, work up to that level and not just jump right into it. But our third and final thing is going to be thinking about managing fatigue, because training is nothing more than controlled stress on the body. This is your baseline. Training breaks you down so you can eventually build yourself back up. But if you keep digging, you're going to go nowhere and see no gains. What this means for you is you should put more of your stressful training in the beginning of the training week when you're the most recovered, and as you go more into the week and you have more fatigue building up, you should be going with less stressful things so you can still progress, but it's not breaking you down completely. Now we're going to look at an individual training session where you have to keep in mind if you're going to be more fatigued at the end of your training session than you are at the beginning. This means you should be putting more of your explosive and more technically challenging exercises at the beginning of your training session and working your way down to the simpler and lighter movements at the end. So since we're starting with something explosive here, that might mean you start your day with a snatch, clean, jerk, plyometric jump series, etc. Because if you try doing that later in the workout when we're tired, not only are you going to be less explosive, you're going to be less there mentally, so you're going to have crappy reps and you might hurt yourself. After we're done with that explosive movement, we're going to move into our big, heavy compound movement for the day. Whether that's a squat, bench, deadlift, or overhead press variation, this is the main thing you should be focusing on in your day. After that's done, we move into our accessory work. These are more of your smaller bodybuilding type movements. Make sure you can bring up your weaknesses and not get hurt. A lot of people will mistakenly try to major in the minors by making their whole training session bicep curls and tricep extensions, when they'd see a lot more gains if they spend more of that training time on those compound movements. But laying out your training like this, going from the explosive movement to your main compound to your smaller accessory work, will make sure you get the most bang for your buck out of your training days. Our next key concept to make you stronger is to make sure you're doing all of your sets and reps at a meaningful weight. You might also hear us referred to as doing working sets. What this means is, if I have to do 5x5 on my training session, that means I should find a weight that is still difficult, but I can maintain for all 25 of those reps. So let's say if I'm doing 5x5 on a front squat, my 5 rep max is 250 pounds. That means I cannot do 6 reps there, and I could not do that for 2 sets of 5. I should pick a weight that's slightly lighter than that and do that for 5x5. Maybe that's 205, maybe that's 225. So that means I'm doing 5 sets of 5 reps at 205. Now let's compare that to if you just did those 5 sets of 5 while counting your warm-up weights as actual sets. That means you're going to start your first set with the bar, your second set with 135, your third set with 185, your fourth set with 205, and your fifth set with 225. So while that end set might be heavier than any of the reps I did over here doing 5x5 at 205, I did a lot more weight overall doing 5x5 at 205 than I did over here counting my warm-up sets as actual sets. There might have been only 1 or 2 sets over here that actually meant anything and was productive. Doing these working sets, we were actually having meaningful training time with a meaningful heavy weight is what's going to give you your strength and size gains in the long run. Concept number whatever this is Stop just training the flashy muscle groups. I know everybody wants big pecs, traps, biceps, and calves, but every single muscle group has an opposite muscle group. And if you're not training that opposite muscle group just as often, with just as much weight, not only are you not as strong as you possibly could be, you're going to have some muscle imbalances, which could lead to some injuries further down the line, which we don't want. So make sure you're training all the muscles around the body, not just the ones that look cool. Our next thing to make you stronger is to learn how to land properly. Because you can do all the plyometrics in the world, and they're great exercises, but if you're not landing properly, you're not getting the benefits of those exercises, and you might end up getting yourself hurt. Because when you're doing plyometrics, you're training your body how to produce force and to land and absorb that force with every single rep. So if you're doing bad reps, you're teaching your body bad things to do. When you're landing, you should be in a good athletic position that is balanced, as in not rocking forward or backward, side to side, while having your legs and knees over your feet so that you're in a position where you can actually absorb force without having your knees cave in. Our final concept today is to stop overanalyzing your technique. Sometimes you're just not strong enough to lift a weight, and no amount of tweaking your form is going to make any difference. You just need more time under the bar and more time in the gym, and that's completely fine. And with that, that's all of my tips for you guys today. If you found anything valuable in this video today, please support the channel by liking the video, commenting, subscribing, all those usual YouTube things. I'll see you next time.